Oh, good. It's recording for us. That's what we want to happen. All right. These participants are filling up. I see numerous participants. I love how it's increasing by the second. Very good.
Already broke 30.
I love it. Peyton, how's the weather out there? Is it
It
freezing,
is it's
snowing?
snowing today. Yeah. It's actually snowing. We've been getting snow consistently every Wednesday for the last like 5 weeks.
Every Wednesday.
Yeah. And then it disappears and then it comes back.
Nice. And you're in the Baltimore area, right?
Correct. Correct. Beautiful Baltimore.
Well, Houston is beautiful today, but we didn't get snow this time. We got some a couple weeks ago, but it's beautiful and windy and very cold today.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Now, I know that you are an avid cook. Have you made anything new or exciting recently?
Yeah, so we have been working through cookbooks. So we recently got into Thai,
Mhm.
and my wife loves Thai food and I love Thai food. So we've been making Thai basil and Mongolian beef and this and that. And that's usually like our decompression after work is like put some music on and make some food and hang out and make a good meal, you know?
Fantastic. I know I've seen, I've heard about some of your dinner parties, and I'm sad that I live so far away because I would totally attend.
Yeah, there has been some epic dinner parties.
Believe it.
They're always a good time.
You guys go all out when you cook everything from scratch, all the dips, all the apps, all the sides, everything. It always looks amazing.
Good, good. We got a question in the chat from Aaron.
All right. Hi, Aaron. Hello. Will this be available as a recording after the event? Yes, absolutely. I will be emailing everybody after the event, the recording and some other resources that we talk about today. So fear not. Thanks for asking. That was a great question. In fact, everyone, here's a quick welcome from me. I want to know where everybody is from. Start posting. As I just said, I'm in Houston, Texas. Peyton is in Baltimore area of Maryland. And make sure whenever you're doing the chat that you're chatting to everyone. Okay, St. Louis, New Hampshire, Idaho, ooh, cold Alberta. Lots of great things. Oh my goodness, I love it. Well, we have
LA, Ohio. Yeah, all over the place.
I know, I love it. This is fantastic. Well, we have a lot to go over today, so I'm going to go ahead and get going here and get started. My name is Hannah Kennedy. I'm the manager of strategic relationships for Elite Worldwide. We are a coaching company that's been around for 34 years, focused on people, principles, and results. And we love working not only with shop owners, but with their employees. So we work to help shop owners build a successful business and get to enjoy the fruits of those labors, but also to take care of people. And then we also offer everything from coaching, peer groups to service advisor training. One of the biggest things that we do is offer value however we can. And so in the industry relationships that we have, we find ways to offer free value to you, the shop owners and the shop employees, so that you can learn how to better serve your clients. So in this case, I invited my friend Peyton. We've been friends for a long time, and he is an expert in all things maintenance with regard to vehicles and works for BG, as you all know, over on the East Coast. So Peyton is an avid educator, and I'm so excited to hear him teach us today about how we can educate our customers to make wise decisions about the maintenance of their vehicles, especially in the world that we're seeing today, where people in this financial climate need to keep their vehicles longer. We are needing to advise them how to get the most out of their vehicles in a healthy way. So thank you so much for joining us, Peyton. I'm so excited for you to be here today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I hope that you guys all learn a ton. Um, Real quick, I want to make sure that you guys are all kind of ready for this. There's going to be a lot that's going to come pretty quick. We are recording it, so they will give you a copy. But my goal is to really give you a lot of tools for your toolbox and have these resources to be able to explain things to the customers and have a plan. There's going to be a lot of good info. Feel free to take screenshots or slides. And at the end, if you want copies of some of this stuff, just let me know. I'll get your email and I can send you this stuff. It's no problem. Okay. When I started out doing this, I was a mechanic. I started out in high school and did oil changes and stuff. And then I became a mechanic. And then I decided that I wanted to get into service. And I always remember that you kind of just sold whatever the tech recommended. It was never really like a plan, right? Some techs would never recommend certain services. Some would recommend the same service every single time on every single car, right? And that's just what you did. And on Subarus, we would do one thing. And on a Ford, we had some guy that used to work at Ford or knew his brother from Ford. So we do what he tells us to do, right? And all of us have these stories of what are we actually doing when the car comes in to be maintained. I think a lot of that is what creates a lot of the confusion around this. When I was working as a service advisor, I had this customer come in and just verbally abuse me one day, and she was just all over me. And what happened was she asked us for a 60K. So what we did is we went and looked the car over. The tech made a bunch of recommendations, which was every fluid service because that's what the Subaru recommended us to do. And at 60K, that's what we did. So then she came and yelling at me, "Oh, you guys are trying to rip me off and thief me. I want copies of everything, and I'm going to take you to court, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and blah, 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 blah." And I never really understood if we did something wrong, right? Like we looked at the vehicle and the interest to get the car where it needs to go, but like what did we do wrong in that situation? And what we did wrong is that we were not prepared to have that maintenance conversation with that customer. We were just doing what we thought we should be recommending when, and we were kind of just winging it versus having a plan. So that's one thing that I really want to teach you today. I'm going to go over with that. I'm going to give you an exercise that you can do with your staff when you guys get back to the shop. And then I'm going to go over a bunch of changes in the industry that I think you guys need to all know about. So right now in the industry, there is roughly vehicles are kept for about 13 years. It's longer than it used to be. This was a year ago. Now it's 13.1 years. And that is registered vehicles. That is not the broken down car in the back of the lot that's not registered or doesn't have insurance on it. This is registered insured vehicles. Okay. When you look at an average, half is below and half is above. So I think 25% is 16 years or older at this point. The reason for this is replacing these cars are much more expensive, much more difficult than it used to be, right? So people are holding on to these cars longer. The average that you see in the nation is about 15 to 16, 17,000 miles per year. If you live in an area where the Walmart or the Home Depot is an hour away, you're probably going to see more like 30,000 miles a year. If you live in the city and you don't drive a lot, you might be doing 5,000 miles a year. One reminder to remember about this is a lot of this has changed since COVID. You know, we used to all go into work. We used to all pick up the kids. We used to drop them off at school. We used to all live the same life. Now it's different. You know, I drive 20, 30,000 miles a year. My wife drives 5, right? So we have to look at this from a customer standpoint now, which I'll explain in a second. If you do the math on that, 12.9 years times 15,000 miles, you're looking at roughly 200,000 miles, right? That's what people want to get out of their cars nowadays, or at least they're expecting to. So our goal really is to give them what they want, right? Which in most cases is to do maintenance to help keep future repair costs down so that they can keep the car longer and not have to go buy a new vehicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I was selling service, I wasn't really bought into selling maintenance yet because I didn't really understand why it was worth it, right? I got paid $4 if I sold a service, but like, you know, that's great, but like, is it something I'm just selling because my boss is telling me to sell it, or is it something I'm really selling because it benefits the customers, right? When you believe in what you're selling, it's a lot easier for you to have that conversation and say, look, I understand how you feel, but let me explain this to you, right? So what I like to do is really work through the math and share this with the team. Okay. Now, I know there's a lot of smart people in the room, and I will tell you, if you go to a coaching meeting and you come back to your staff and say, "Hey, I met this this great guy named Peyton, and he told me to do it this way. So just do it this way." They're going to fight you on it, right? You've got to have a meeting. You've got to get them to sit down with you and go over this together. Hey, look, guys, I want to build a plan so that we don't miss maintenance on certain cars because it happens, right? There's cars that don't get serviced. They get 125,000 miles on them, and then nobody wants to touch anything. Don't touch the transmission. Don't touch anything because it's never been done. And now it's a ticking time bomb. Usually that customer didn't know that's what was going to happen, right? So we'll work through this pretty quickly. A lot of times I'll do it with you guys interacting, but I can guess the prices because I know most of your areas. So if we were to change the oil in a car, and for instance, a BG class, we put BG MOA in it, EPR, and 44K, okay? The complete fuel and oil service, basically. That is gonna cost somewhere probably around $200 or less, depending on what area you're in. I'm shooting high because I'm hoping that the people in LA are like, okay, right? Because I know some of you guys are going to be $300 or $400 for some of these things. With this sheet at the top, you can calculate your intervals. And then as it breaks it out in here, what you're going to do is you're going to put an X for every time that you're going to do that service. Okay. So we're going to go to 150,000 miles, not just to it, but we're going to service the car past it. Okay. So if I'm doing an oil change with MOA, EPR, and 44K, every oil change, every 5,000 miles, I don't see any reason that that motor is not going to make it 200,000 or 300,000 miles. Now, all of us know that if we do a 10,000 mile oil change interval, right, that car's not going to make it that far, okay, unless we're doing a lot to take care of that. So let's talk about a fuel service. Let's just say 250. Let's talk about brake fluid. Let's talk about 180 bucks. Let's say coolant. How about 215 for that? And we'll do, we don't have power steering on most of these vehicles anymore. Transmission, we'll say 350. I know that one can get expensive depending on what vehicle you're working on nowadays. You can take this sheet and you can break it down into everything from wiper blades to all that stuff. What I would try to do is stay away from wipers, brakes, and tires, because usually when you look at the numbers, those things are broken out separately. Okay. So we're going to do a fuel service every 15K. That's what they're recommending on all the GDIs now because the carbon buildup is so much worse. So let's do that. And then for these, we're going to do the service every 30,000 miles. Okay. And this is a pretty simple car, right? There's no differential, there's no four-wheel drive. It's just coolant, brakes, fuel services, oil changes, and transmission fluid, whether it's CVT or ATF. Okay. So when you do this, the sheet will calculate the math for you. It'll tell you the costs of this. Now, if you're doing the BG lifetime protection plan, you know that this kicks in after the warranty, and that's a big reason to talk about this. So right now, this plan is at 8 cents a mile, roughly 13,000, 1250, 12,500, right? Per total cost, or $1,200 a year. So what you're looking to cover that plan is roughly $100 per year, or sorry, $100 per month. So how do you look at this compared to what everybody else is doing, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to good old trustworthy Google. Okay. And what I want you to do is type in Edmunds true cost of ownership. Okay. Now, these are calculated costs. I will tell you that every manufacturer is fighting right now to try to keep their advertised costs low. So as you look at this, it'll usually give you a selection of about 5 years. If you look at the same vehicle from 2019 to 2025, the maintenance costs have probably dropped $1,500 to $2,000. Not that the car's really changed, but they're taking things out to try to make the maintenance costs that are advertised to them cheaper, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Okay, so let's just go to an Acura and a 21. an RDX, millions of those out there, just regular SUV, 2-cylinder turbo. Okay. You'll notice that it covers $7,800 over 5 years or 75,000 miles. Okay. What we call this is usually the bare minimum to get the car out of warranty. So this will be the very rarely fluid exchanges, tires, some brakes, a couple things, but you can go through the details in here. Repairs are broken out separately than just the maintenance. It is kind of hard to understand because they won't really tell you how to calculate it, but it's $7,800 over 5 years and 75,000 miles, not 150,000 miles. Okay. So let's take 78004 divided by 75,000 miles. That's 10 cents a mile. I can't see my calculator, but that's 10 cents a mile. That's that's more than what we're doing on our plan. And we're getting that car to be able to go a lot further of a distance versus doing what the manufacturer is recommending to do. So if you look through here, you'll see the maintenance numbers and you can try to read and understand it. I will tell you, make sure that it's a 5-year breakdown and it's 75,000 miles. Some of these reports out there, they will skew the data to try to look a little bit better. And some of them just don't make any sense. Okay. But this is a really good way to start having that conversation with your staff. Break it all out for you. And the conversation really, hey, look, if a customer comes in and wants to get 200,000 miles out of this vehicle, what are we going to be recommending and when? Right? Does that mean that if a car comes in with 75,000 miles on it and they've done nothing to it, are we going to be recommending all the services today? Right? That's a plan. It's easier to have that conversation before the car goes in the back. One of my favorite questions, and you can write this down, is what is the plan for this vehicle? And the second one is, where have you been maintaining this vehicle before it came to us? Right? A lot of times they'll tell you, oh, I've been doing nothing. I have no idea. I know it's time to start maintaining it. Right? It's easier to have this conversation in the beginning. The more that we can talk about it in the beginning, the better. Switch screens again. Okay. Okay.
We're receiving the question asking if people will get access to the maintenance interval builder that you just showed us.
Yep. At the end, I have a way to collect your email, and there's a button that says send me the files from class. And if you click that, I'll send them to you. No problem.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to
Sure.
hop back off here.
No problem. So one of the things that I like to use is a way to have a conversation with somebody without us forcing what we want on them. What I see a lot, especially at the dealer level, is you need to sell a transmission service to that guy at the counter every 30K, right? And the problem is, if I walk into a doctor's office with a broken foot and the lady at the front counter says, hey, let's just go ahead and schedule an amputation, I'd be like, hold on a second. Like, I want to talk to the doctor and get an x-ray. And if he said that's what we got to do, it's what we got to do. But like, I want to talk about this, right? That customer is driving that car with no issue. They don't want to spend money if they don't have to. They've heard about all the bad sides of doing maintenance and how you're going to get ripped off and this and all this stuff, right? Because no one's ever explained it to them before. You have to get them to talk to you about maintenance. When they come in, ask them, what's the plan with this vehicle? Right? You have to disarm them. If they fight you on it, that's okay. Just remind them and say, look, I know, because they're probably busy and they're overwhelmed and they're on the way to work, right? Hey, look, no problem, Mrs. Johnson. I'll look over all this stuff with the tech. I'll get it all together so that you and me can go over on the phone quickly. Sounds good? Great, right? It's not the option that I'm not going to talk to you about it. It's how we're going to talk to you about it, right? The next big one that I see a lot of is make sure you're doing a good health checkup. We are going longer intervals than we ever have before. So now what's happening is we're having these bigger services because we don't see them as often and customers are complaining. But then if we miss stuff, like a battery that's low is not going to make it 8 months to the next oil change, right? Brake pads at 5 30 seconds aren't going to make it till the next oil change. So this is a new way that we have to look at this stuff because it's not the same way that it was before. And lastly, be convenient. I will tell you, you all have a huge advantage over the dealers because you can be convenient. Most of them are very, very inconvenient right now, and customers are not putting up with it. Okay. So, one of the things that I see happen a lot, I remember when I was a mechanic, it was at a gas station and we had 5 bays and we had a lot of customers that would just stop by and say hi. And every once in a while, a guy would get a new car, right? And they'd come by and they'd say, hey, what oil should I use? Because they really are asking you, hey, help me make a smart decision because there's a lot of oils out there and they're all claiming that they are the best. So this is a great opportunity to talk to them about what they want out of that car so that we can tell them, hey, every 30K we recommend this, every 75 we recommend this. This is why, right? It's not just, oh, you happen to come in today and we recommended this service to you, okay? If my wife's a perfect example, she's a budgeter. If you could tell her what to plan for, she would do it in 2 seconds and she would schedule it out with you because you're making it easier for her, right? So again, today, one of my goals is to really teach you the why so that you can understand the difference, right? A lot of you have thought this, what oil do I use in my car? I want to take care of the thing, right? So all these quarts of oil, if you turn them around on the back, there's a stamp called an API stamp. What that is the American Petroleum Institute started with Model A's at SA. It went up to model or up to cars nowadays, SN, SN plus, and SP. Okay. When we test oils that are at SN, no matter what brand you buy, they're going to test very, very similar because they're all meeting the same spec for the American Petroleum Institute. Now, I will tell you the same thing I tell every advisor that asks me. Put a decent oil in your car that meets the spec and add MOA, and you're never going to have a problem with that engine. Okay. Dexos, Dexos, GMHP transmission fluid, and Allison transmission fluid are all trademark terms. You will find one day you'll look it up and you'll try to buy it, and there's only one place that makes it and one place that sells it. It's because it's trademarked. If I put that on my bottle, I have to pay them every time I sell it to you. We are past the approval of Dexos. We've already exceeded it, but we can't put it on our bottle without paying them, right? So that's the difference. That's what those TMs mean when you see that on the oil. Okay. So, hey, Peyton, what am I getting when I buy a good oil? Right. So the difference is evaporation. All oil is going to evaporate if you're working at a fryer in a kitchen overnight, right? As you're using it, the oil is going to evaporate, right? Same thing happens in your car. So API states it can't be more than 15% over the interval, meaning if it takes 6 quarts of oil, that would be a 0.9 loss. Is anything more than that is unacceptable, which makes a lot of your dealers liars, right? Because they're telling you that they can go 800 miles on a quart or whatever the case may be. 15% is the rule, okay? A Mobil 1, you're probably looking at about 12% evaporation. A BG oil, you're probably looking at 7. So that's the real difference. Less evaporation, less stuff that goes through the engine that's dirty that we have to clean up later. Something else that we can talk about more. And if you guys want more of this, you can let me know. I do a lot of these virtual, and we're only going to have so much time today, so I don't want to dive too much into oil. Our big industry drivers right now. So the first one's CAFE. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but basically it was an environmental act in the late 80s that requires them to make the car lighter or more fuel efficient. So Peyton, what does that mean? Why would you put a plastic intake on a car? It's the stupidest thing you could ever come up with. It's going to warp at one point, right? Because they had to make the car lighter. Why can't we resurface rotors? Because now they come at discard, meaning they're thinner and there's not enough material there to resurface because it's lighter and the car gets better gas mileage. Peyton, why would they put all these stupid plastic shields on cars with these stupid pop pins that we all hate? Lighter and the car gets more. You see what I'm going with this? It's everything that you can imagine is because of CAFE. The next big one is warranties. So before the housing market crash, everybody was about this, and then they all went up to 100,000 miles when Kia did, and they were all selling those cars, and they all had to eat a lot of warranty stuff on the back end, and now they've all come back down. Pretty much everybody is a 36,000 mile warranty now, and the powertrains will be 45, 50, 60, depending on the model. But I will tell you, there's very limited coverage. The new car prices on top of that are higher than they've ever been. We all know this, right? The car volume for sales is not an issue anymore. They are volumed up. Cars are not being sold over MSRP anymore. The problem is that nobody wants a $60,000 Camry, right? And 8 years of payment are consistently around the same amount, $800 a month, but they're stretching them out a lot longer than have been before. Now, what I want you to look at, we're doing 72, 84-month, and 96-month loans, but that's weird because the car's warranty is only 3 years. So now the warranty is not covering the whole loan period, which is going to be a big issue for people in the future. Hey, ring, ring, you need a timing chain at 65,000 miles. Well, isn't that covered under warranty? No, sorry. What do you want to do? Oh, I'm still making $800 a month car payments on this. What do I want to do about that? Right now, you're in a very tough situation. The fourth thing that we're running into is now, because of the internet's wonderfulness, is that we are getting this data that we never got before. If I go to Subaru, I can Google and figure out roughly what the internet's going to tell me the maintenance costs are going to be, right? That we've never dealt with this before. This is a new thing. So now the manufacturer kind of keep those maintenance costs low, which we'll talk about here in a second. Looking at yesterday's vehicle versus today's vehicle, I put cheaper to maintain at the top because you're going to hear this a lot now because they're focusing this on their new sales, right? We got to get that cheap so people will buy our Honda or our Toyota or whatever, okay? Warranty used to be a lot less, then they went up and then they came back down. Now, you can sit in a Honda of USA meeting, and Honda of USA and the Honda dealership are two different businesses. Honda USA is only making money selling a car or selling them a part to put on a car. The local dealership is a different business that makes money and profit on everything else that they do in the building. Okay. The reason that these numbers come out is because Honda of USA wants to sell more cars. Okay. The Honda Civic, they've been saying this for years, it should be $200 or less per year for the first 5 years or 75,000 miles. Okay. If you look that car up on Edmunds, it'll make them a liar right there. But this is why you're seeing no fluid services listed. This is why there's an 85,000 mile tire now, because if they only got to put one set of tires on it, that keeps this number down. If I make a transmission a lifetime fill, then that keeps this number down. That's where all of this is coming from. Now, every day that you walk into a dealer, they have a 30, 60, 90K program that's not anywhere close to $200 a year. So how do you have both, right? How is that fair? How is that honest? So what happens is that $200 plan is really the bare minimum to get the car out of warranty, which is now 36,000 miles. The other recommendations are what that dealership are going to recommend in that area based on what they want to do to that car to get 200,000 miles out of it. I thought every Ford dealer did at the same 60K. They don't. Even in the same area, they're going to be different. It's up to the management to decide they want to recommend when, okay? So when you're pulling stuff off Mitchell and ALLDATA, a lot of times it's going to get less and less and you're not going to see a lot. I would use it to make sure you're not missing something like spark plugs or a seat filter in an Infiniti or like whatever, right? But make sure you're looking at the fluid side on what you want to do to get that car to 200,000, because a lot of the dealers are doing it, but you're not going to see it in the maintenance schedules, okay? Now, one of the ways that they get around this is the term normal driving. Okay. And this is what the Toyota 10,000 mile oil change is based on. To be a normal driver, you cannot frequently idle the vehicle. You cannot sit and stop and go traffic. You cannot do extended driving in hot temperatures, which is usually anything that's 60 minutes or more. No extended driving in freezing temperatures. No short trips less than 5 miles. No long distances under 50 miles per hour. No regular trips with steep hills or mountains. No trip on dusty, muddy, salted or gravel roads, no towing or campers, and my personal favorite, no use of the factory installed roof rack. If you do any of these things at any time, you are no longer considered a normal driver and you do not fall under a normal maintenance schedule. It is now a severe or an extreme maintenance schedule. Okay. They took these out of owners' manuals for a while and now it's coming back. And in my opinion, it's a very cover your ass kind of thing. So if you go uphill or downhill or mountain roads, you're not covered. Driving in heavy traffic over 90 degrees, driving in areas where cold or salt or corrosive materials are used during cold weather. No driving as a patrol car, taxi, DoorDash, Uber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So pretty much every car is excluded. Why is this happening, right? Again, it's because they're trying to advertise costs to get them to buy a new vehicle, not to get them to keep it for 300,000 miles, right? They don't make money on that. The service department does, but Toyota corporate, Honda corporate doesn't. So this is a good example of the numbers that get shared. I think it's really interesting that a Tesla and a Buick are only $900 a difference, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Savings in the oil changes, but whatever. But on here, you'll see Honda is 5,800, Toyota is 4,900. The reason they're so much lower is because their oil change interval is different. So 5 years, 75,000 miles. Let's do some math. The dealers got really sick of this and arguing with customers and said, you know what? We're just going to give it to you for free. And that way, 3 years of maintenance for free, 5 maintenance for free, right? It's a great idea. I can send them to Hannah. Hannah gets to meet them and wow them for 3 years for free. How can you not win a customer when it's free, right? But the problem was they overloaded them with all these free oil changes and nobody wanted to wait and it was a headache, right? So what they need is less oil changes and less headaches and less cost to get that cost down. Okay. So if we look at it over 75,000 miles, 3,000-mile oil change like Toyota used to do would be 25 oil changes over a 5-year period, meaning it would be 5 times they'd have to see them in a year. To 5, it'd be every 15,000 or 15 services. 10,000 miles would be 7.5, and a 15,000-mile oil change would be 5. Land Rover went to 20 at one point, and then they backed that back off. If we put some math to it, let's say a service is $100, 2,500, 1,500, 750, 500, right? So now the dealer only has to see them once or twice a year, right? That frequency saves them a lot of headache, a lot of time, and a lot of money. Okay. But here's the big thing. If you look at warranties coming down, right, and we have tons of these cars that are getting sludged by 65,000 miles, which we can clean now with Dynamic, do the math. If they're saving roughly $1,750 per car, Toyota sold, not Toyota and Lexus, just Toyota, 2.2 million cars in 23. That's a saving of $4 billion. That's why this is happening. This is why the oil change intervals are getting extended. This is why everything's disappearing as far as maintenance schedules go. You have to be an advocate for your customer now and help them understand that you're there to help them get mileage out of the car, because they know in a lot of cases the dealership's not helping them to do that, or they're making it very difficult. Okay. With these plans, we're seeing a lot of owners man severe and an extreme change interval. So even though the sales guy is telling them go 10,000 miles, no problem, you have to realize that a lot of times when they have a problem, they're going to tell them it's not covered under that warranty because you've been doing extended idling, or you've been driving in cold weather or hot weather or whatever. So really now you're on your own after 60,000 miles. That's why these plans exist at the dealer level and at your level, so that we can get them what they want, get what they want out of that vehicle. Okay. Again, with CAFE, another reason that all this is happening. So it's an environmental act in the 70s that requires them to make the cars lighter and more fuel efficient. In the 80s, it was easy, right? We take off chrome bumpers and now we have plastic bumpers. The car is lighter, right? We do all these things. So the first big one that we all saw was brake calipers. They used to be these big old cast iron things that could absorb a lot of heat. If you put it on a cast iron skillet, it would absorb a lot of heat, right? So that's what would happen, is it could handle the heat. The engineer said, look, we can save 5 pounds by going to these alloy calipers. The downside is there's nowhere for the heat to go. So what happens is the heat cooks the brake fluid inside the caliper, and that's why all your manufacturers are recommending brake fluid changes now, is because there was a change in the system. The new reason now is because of avoidance, which we'll talk about in a second. The next big one was batteries. For you guys that don't know, Interstate Batteries got bought. They now sell an Exide battery. It's the same battery that Walmart and AAA sells. They're usually 1, 2, or 3 year batteries. We used to have 5, 7, and 10 year batteries. The reason I tell you this is they're replacing more batteries under factory warranty than they ever have before. You used to see the first battery. Now you're probably going to see the second or the third or the fifth battery, depending on what brand it is. The Honda and Toyota ones are a little bit better. The American ones are not very good, especially the Ford ones. So just kind of a heads up on that. The big one, the next big one was piston rings. So a lot of us hear the term low tension piston rings. I never really understood what that meant. So this is a compression ring on the top, compression ring, and this bottom ring is your oil control. So as the piston goes up and down, the oil is designed to go through those little slots, cool the head of the piston, and go back to the oil pan. When you talk about low tension, the piston rings are not as thick, so they don't push out with as much energy, so therefore they don't seal as tight. So when we have these engines that get dirty, they get dirty a lot faster because they can't seal up as tight, and then it becomes a bigger issue. Everything from plastic drain plugs to plastic gas, I mean, anything that you can think of is a reason. The different sunroof designs or window regulators, anything, till it got to the point that they talked about oil. We got to figure out an oil that can get the car more efficient. The first big one that we all heard about was 08, 016 engine oil, right? Wow, it's getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. What you need to know is that when an oil is thinner, it needs more of the good stuff to keep it from breaking down. And that's usually why a lot of these fluids are now getting really expensive. The first one we all saw was low viscosity, or LV ATF. Ford ULV, LV, Ford GMHP, pretty much. So car being produced today, besides a Dodge van, comes with an LV fluid in it. A lot of times it doesn't say it on the bottle. Our LV will cover all of them. We do it everywhere, and it's a great fluid at a great price. But what you need to know is that it's going to wear out faster. And usually you're going to notice when you look it up by the price. It'll be $20, $30 a quart, because again, it's thinner. So we have to add more of the good stuff to keep it from breaking down in the first place. But you'll notice it's going to get dirtier a lot faster than the older ones, which are now called a high viscosity transmission fluid, not a low viscosity. It takes less energy to move the fluid. Therefore, the car can get better gas mileage. The next big one we're seeing is brake fluid. So we started out with DOT3, DOT4. You might remember DOT4 Super Dot or DOT4 like for the track. Now we're calling that level DOT4 LV. Most of your European cars 2012 and up are going to require it. Most of your American cars, I'd say like in the 2000s and up, are starting to require it because it moves faster through the system so that the car can brake faster. It's got nothing to do with the gas mileage. It's about collision avoidance. If your car has lane departure assistance or it stops the car instead of you getting into a crash, radar cruise control, you're going to see a lot more of these brake fluid requirements. Now, Nissan is now a 15,000 mile brake fluid requirement change. It's right there in the owner's manual. It's kind of like ADAS. Not everyone's enforcing it yet, but it's right there. And any of their SUVs like the Armadas are every 10,000 miles now. This is why. It's because they're trying to keep them as fast as possible for collision avoidance. Okay. The next big one was gear oil. So we used to see much thicker gear oil. Now it's getting thinner and thinner. The other thing that you're going to notice is that it takes less of it. So now it's only 0.9 quarts of fluid instead of 3 quarts of fluid, right? But when you go to look up that, notice it's very expensive because we're asking 1 quart to do what 3 quarts used to do. The same amount of heat, the same amount of pressure, the same amount of torque. Now it's an aluminum case, not a steel case that can absorb a lot of heat, right? So everything's working against it. And that's why a lot of these fluids are getting amped up to be able to handle that change. Remember that a lot of these systems now have no fluid or less fluid and no interval, right? It's a lifetime fluid. I was at Mazda the other day and they sent out a release to all their dealers that says, hey, please start recommending differential services on all of these SUVs from this year to this year. The reason for that is because they have been a lot of rear ends in the last couple years. So what they're going to start doing is recommending it every 50. If they don't want to do it and it has an issue, now it's on the customer, right? But if they want to do it and they have an issue, we'll help them out. My problem with that is they never send that letter to the customer. And this is a lot of times what you all have to argue with them about because oh, well, I looked up on the internet. It's a lifetime fill. I don't have to do it. What's the plan with this car? Because you're not going to get 200,000 miles out of that transmission without servicing it. So what do you want to do? Right? We have to be those ones that are educated that can have that conversation. Okay. Now, the tough conversation, the Prius. Everybody has a Prius customer that is the biggest pain in the butt, and I get it. They all think they bought this most amazing car ever, and it's amazing and it's wonderful. What you need to know, this is not going away. We all hate stop start. All the customers hate it. Oh, can you turn it off, right? It's not going away. Cafe is a 34 to 38 mile per gallon average now. In 10 years, they're predicting 54 to 58. GDI, turbochargers is a way that we're going to get there, right? Lighter wheels, lighter tires, brakes that can do more with less weight, right? Stop start feature to save us more gas. So what you're going to see in 10 years is 80% of the market is going to be a hybrid assist. It'll be a regular gas vehicle that has an electric battery and regenerative brakes to give you a little bit extra when you want it, and you can plug it in. What everybody is not thinking about is that these cars consistently shut off while they drive. The problem with that is that they build up carbon deposits at 2 to 3 times the rate of a regular engine, because when these things get on the highway, they shut off. They're not running to burn all this stuff out. If you do a service on something like this, just please realize that it's going to be a home run because they've never done it before. And we see huge results with that. Okay. I know I'm running out of time, so I just want to make sure I get through all the good stuff. Okay. One thing I would recommend is that you make sure that you have a plan for looking at dipsticks and checking out the cars and talking to the customer about what the plan is. When they come in, go ask them, have you lost any loss of oil? Have you noticed any mile per gallon loss? Usually by 35 to 45,000 miles, especially if it's turbocharged, they're going to lose probably 3 to 6 miles per gallon. And they'll tell you, yeah, I've noticed this thing is just not as powerful as it was before. We can fix that now. If we wait too long, it's going to be a much bigger deal. Quick reminder, if a light is red, it means it has no pressure. If it's yellow, it's a maintenance light. When these lights were designed, they were designed like a red, yellow, green stoplight. Red means stop the car, yellow means warning, green means okay. So when somebody asks you, you need to ask them what color the light is. This will save you a lot of headaches down the road with technicians and trying to explain stuff. We recommend cleaning at least once a year if you're going to try to get 200,000 miles of that car. Good oil is not enough anymore. Good oil and MOA is not enough anymore. All the variable valve timing issues and all the stuff that we're having is because of that. Okay. I'm running out of time. I know I want to answer some questions. So I'm going to give you one little quick tip that I love, and then I'm going to open her up. So everybody in this world could try to explain maintenance to a customer, and they in their owner's manual and say, hey, it's not in there. And that's realistic, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. What I see a lot is that we try to challenge them and explain it to them versus agreeing with them. Okay. So, hey, Sally, I understand. I'm going to empathize with you first. I understand that it's dumb that it's not in your owner's manual, but let me explain to you why we're recommending it. And I can guarantee you that your Ford dealer is doing the same thing because they're running into the same issues, right? It makes total sense to that customer. So we have to buddy up with them and try to explain it to them in a way that they can understand versus just going, oh, it's another difficult customer that wants to ask a hard question today, right? So that's something that we need to think about. Then we need to educate them. Then we need to ask them for the sale, right? But start empathizing. It's one of the reasons that women do really good in this industry is because they didn't have a mechanic as a dad. They had to fix their car, and now they can empathize with the customer. Oh, it's $6,000. That sucks. I get that. I get it, man. I just had to put brakes on my car. I get it. Work on your empathy. Okay. I have a quick follow up for you. Let me just change screens real quick. If you guys would like this information, you can scan this with your phone. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, you can scan with your phone. I'll also put this link. Oh, Hannah, can you sit you in the chat? For some reason, it's not letting me copy it.
Yeah, can I type it in the chat? Sure.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
Bear with me just a second. I'll do that right now.
Oh, I got it. I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. So if you can't scan, let me do it to everybody. If you can't scan the QR codes you're on your phone, I just put the link in the chat. So I am not going to bug you. There's a button on that form that says, do you want us to follow about maintenance? If you want us to, click it. If you don't want us to bug you, don't click it. I'm not going to forward information to anybody to bother you if that's not what you want. The whole point of this was to help you guys and help Hannah today. And my goal of this is not to bug the heck out of you guys. So hopefully that was helpful, and let's go ahead and open it up for questions.
The primary question I had come in was, or I had two different questions come. One is, can you please show us, I'm hating to have you take off the QR code from the screen, but can you show us where on the Edmunds website that you were able to pull up the cost of ownership?
Yeah. And somebody just asked, are you comfortable telling them they'll get a mile per gallon change after doing an oil service? So, or a fuel service or whatever. Yeah, it's tough, right? Because if you tell all of them that you're going to get better, 3 miles per gallon, and they only get 2, they're going to complain about it. We have this service advisor that we've done a free fuel service on their Suburban like 5 times. And every time she complains that she doesn't get enough miles per gallon back, right? And I'm just like, this is crazy. So I think saying that you'll see an increase is a good idea, but I don't think you want to promise them that. Now, I usually tell them that it's going to start up better, but let me explain that. We used to do tune-ups on cars, and customers would tell us, oh yeah, it seems like it starts up better because in the morning when it would start up, it was smoother or whatever. Now they're going to notice that during the stop start. If you guys have been in a car and it's really jerky and it throws you in the seat when it stop starts, it's usually because the fuel system's either oily or dirty. Okay. So if you do the fuel service, that's usually what they're going to tell you is, wow, this car seems to start up better. It seems smoother because they experience that, 5 or 10 times driving the car. But yeah, be careful. I will tell you, I was a pretty ballsy advisor, and I would tell people, if you don't notice a difference in the way the car runs, I'll give you your money back, and I'll tell you it never happened. So Edmunds.com. I will tell you that if you go to the main website, it is hard to find this. I feel like they're trying to hide it now. So you have to actually type in Edmunds, TCO, or just true cost of ownership, and enter, because I couldn't find it for a long time to their main website. But when you type that in, boom, it's right here. It has an explanation, kind of is. It doesn't really give you enough to really make a proper analysis, but it's a really good tool. And what I like to use it for is to make sure your staff understands that your maintenance isn't expensive compared to what the industry expectation is. I will add this link to the email that I'm going to send out if you guys did the job form. So that way there's no question. Okay.
The other question was about, again, everyone, if you do the QR code, the question was about, I'm sorry, let me back up. The question was, will we get access to the spreadsheet that Peyton had up there earlier, where he was calculating the mileage and the maintenance intervals, and calculating the numbers of miles and how much it costs? Yes, if you go to the job form or the link that we posted in the chat and fill out and indicate that you would like to receive resources from him, then yes, you will get that. Now I will.
And again, I'm not going to bug you after that. It's not like I'm going to be bugging you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, that's perfect. You just brought it up here. I will be following up with an email to all of you as well, with some resources from my company. We will also include, or I will also record, I will also include a recording of this presentation today because it was so chock full of information. So check your emails. You will be receiving them. And if you have any questions, you can always respond to the email and I will see it and I can pass along any questions to Peyton, or I can reach out to him and get the answers for you. Do we have any other questions before we get going? Let's see, great information. I like to say that the service may improve miles per gallon. I never promise anything. I always just say, or when I was working at the front desk at my shop, I was saying, it will improve your experience with your car. It will improve the health of your car. Like all of us have said, sharing promises are never really ideal because everybody has a different experience and they drive differently.
Yeah, another one I've used in the past too is when I'll explain a fuel service, instead of it, I would explain it as a minor tune-up. Like this is your minor tune-up that you do every 15,000 miles to keep the gas mileage where it needs to be, right? Because we're not adding gas mileage, we're restoring it because it's dirty and we can only restore it so much, right? Yeah, exactly. I think restore is a good word, or keep your gas mileage where it needs to be.
Peyton, there another question is, does BG have a site like MOC where you can put in the year, make, model, and it shows what's recommended?
So we have more of a generic 30,000 mile plan is what we recommend. That's what goes with our lifetime protection plan that gives you the component coverages. So that's what we're going to recommend to you. And then we have different things as far as like fleets and stuff if you're looking at operating time. But no, I don't think we have exactly what you're looking for. But if there's someone that you're looking for, let me know and I can send it to you. There's not many resources that I don't have that I can send it to you. Clinton just asked a really good question. Okay, EV brake fluid just as important. I had a Volt and he had a Mustang E. Okay, so EV brakes are hotter than any other brakes that we've dealt with. They're also they don't get serviced very often, so it is a big deal. Now, what's coming down the pipe is there's going to be a whole new line of fluids out there called non-conductive fluid. Because in an electric car, if electricity can conduct through the fluid, it wears the fluid out faster. Okay. Think about this. If you take a cast iron skillet on TikTok that's dirty and you put it in a bucket, right, and you put the battery on it and you pull it out in 3 days, it's all gone, right? That's electrolysis. So, like coolant, once it turns acidic, it now can carry voltage, and now that's what causes the corrosion. So, with electric brakes, electric coolant, electric, all of that is going to be a non-conductive fluid in the future, and that's where we're going with this. The problem is, since the big industry didn't start this and Tesla kind of did, there's no certs for us to match a fluid to. Most Teslas have ATF in them. That's what's in most of the units is transmission fluid or gear oil. But there's no cert that we can get a fluid made towards to have an application and a license to sell it for. So right now, until that stuff gets finalized by the American Petroleum Institute, there's nothing for us to compete against. But we actually already have non-conductive brake fluid because we know that this is coming. So now you can use our 5.1 on EVs and on everything. But yes, they will develop heat a lot faster. The other thing I'd recommend is using our brake grease because it's hot corrosive protection and it's not going to wash away from the heat and you won't have that brake pad sticking and getting all corroded. What happens with the grease is it gets hot and it washes away. So if you use ours, it won't do that. And that's another big problem on EVs is the brakes start to clack and click because they get dry. Hopefully that was helpful.
That was excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. We are past our closing time today, and I value all of your time. Peyton, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone who goes to industry events for training looks up Peyton's name to see if he's teaching a course, because his classes are always chock full of lots of information, lots of real world applicable data. And then we at Elite, we also travel to a lot of our industry events, and we teach on service advisor training. We teach on auditing phone calls for shop owners and quality assurance. We teach on the leaders, so the owner's job description. We also have taught on financials and creating the ultimate creating the ultimate customer experience, and that's Elite Worldwide. We are always out and about in our industry working to improve this industry. So if you ever make it to any of these events like Vision or ATE or STX, ASTA, and a lot more of them, we're often there and we're often presenting. So we would love to see you come say hi to both of us or join one of our classes. I will be sending out a follow-up email, as will Peyton, and everybody's just saying, thank you so much. Mind's blown. Great information. So thank you so much. And thank you all for attending.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Take care.